You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back in, 4:15 from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. This is the Zach Gelb Show right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We get you ready for Eagles and Bills tonight, preseason game number 2, but the home opener of the preseason slate of games for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll also get into the Subway Series talk, and we'll see if Pete McCannon puts Jorge Alfaro in the lineup tonight. Let's go out to the hotline right now and welcome in a man that knows Philadelphia, knows New York, and that's Joe Giglio of Sports Radio 94 WIP, WFAN, and also NJ.com. If there's a job out there, Joe Giglio will do it, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Joe, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm doing well, Zach. How about you?
Well, I'm doing great. All right, let's start with the Birds because I know you're pressed for time today. The Matthews-Darby trade, and also they gave away a third-round pick. I understand the deal. I like the deal. I could also see why some are maybe critical of the deal, but I think it makes the Eagles a better team. Your overall reactions to the trade that did happen last week?
Yeah, I generally agree with the way you framed it. I like it, don't love it. My fear is the Eagles are going to miss Matthews more than they realize, and I'm not completely sold on their revamped wide receiving core not needing the depth he provided. But the Darby side of it makes a ton of sense for the Eagles. They desperately needed a corner, and I think their defense is about to take a leap. They were 13th in the NFL last year. If he's good and the pass rush is more consistent than it was last year, we're probably looking at a top 10 defense. And if Carson Wentz is ready to be better in his second year, take a leap, you add a good quarterback to a top 10 defense, you probably have yourself a contender.
How likely do you think it is that this team makes the playoffs?
It's a good question. I'm wrestling with it.
You seem very positive just following you on Twitter, really, with this team.
Yeah, I am. I ended the offseason, Zach, right when training camp started, however you want to frame when the offseason ends. And I said to myself, I thought they were about a 6-win team on talent going into last year. They won 7 games. I look at them now, and I say, this is about an 8-9-win team. And I've started to boost that up maybe to 10. And I look at the division, Zach, and I think the Giants have a fatal flaw with the offensive line.
Agreed.
I think the Cowboys are destined to come back to earth, and that was before the suspension for Ezekiel Elliott. I think the Eagles are going to be in this thing all year. Are they going to win 9 and miss the playoffs? That could happen. I wouldn't be shocked if that is the final result. But I would be surprised, and I think it's a bad situation for the Eagles. Something went wrong if we're going at those final 2-3 weeks and they're not alive for a playoff spot.
How much does the coach put some fear into you? Because if we're talking about a team that could be on the borderline of going to the playoffs or not, that coach is going to have to be stellar in the final 2-3 minutes of games. Doug Peterson's decision-making, how do you view it going into this year?
I think it's being I guess I'll frame it as this. It's being too harshly criticized for last year. I like that Doug Peterson has an aggressive mentality. That's his thing, and I want him to keep that. I think every coach needs some sort of identity. His is to be aggressive. Now, we could argue process for his results until we're blue in the face with coaches and how they make decisions, and some of the decisions he made last year were wrong. I mean, he really blew the Dallas Cowboys game when they could have been up 10 with 2 minutes to go. He chose to punt the ball. It didn't work out. But the flip side of that is he had his team up 7 points with 2 minutes to go in Dallas against a Cowboys team that was the best in the NFC all regular season long. So I give him credit for that. I think that he's a good play caller. I'm excited to see him with better playmakers, and I think that could add to it. I am positive about Doug, but let's all be honest, and I think you know this, Zach. This year will tell us a lot because now he has the talent to work with. If they don't take a step forward, it'll be an indictment on the head coach.
And he needs to get off to a hot start. I know he got off to the hot start last year, and it didn't work out great down the stretch. But this schedule to start off the season, very tough, Joe.
Very tough. And I've been saying this for weeks, and people kind of roll their eyes when I say it. I think that game week 1 is a pivotal game for the Eagles. They
Tone setter.
They play in D.C. against the Redskins on week 1, a game I think they can win, though they've struggled with the Redskins a lot in recent years, struggled with them last year. I think they're better than Washington right now. After that, they go to Kansas City, who, by the way, has basically a mini bye because Kansas City will play the Thursday night game against New England. Andy Reid off a mini bye, back-to-back road games. The Eagles aren't winning that week 2 game. So if they don't beat the Redskins in week 1, they will come home week 3, likely 0-2 with the Giants coming in, and all of a sudden everyone is very tense in Philadelphia that this season's going to spiral out of control before it starts.
Talking to Joe Giglio right now. I never thought Jordan Matthews was a great wide receiver, but I think some people's criticism of him this week has been really unfair because he was a very productive football player here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Replacing Jordan Matthews, I think it's going to be by committee, but who is the guy that you look to on this roster to pick up the majority of that production, Joe?
Well, I think the natural answer is Nelson Aguilar because he'll probably get a lot of that time in the slot. But I think the guy I'm going to point to is Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has been with this offense for obviously the 2 years with Doug Peterson now, but he's familiar with Carson Wentz. He was on the field a lot last year. I think Carson has a good rapport with him. Not sure Carson has that rapport yet with anybody else. Alshon Jeffries new, Torrey Smith's new. Nelson Aguilar might as well be new because he didn't do anything last year with Carson Wentz. I think Zach Ertz, people keep waiting for another leap. I think he's already a top 10, top 7 tight end. It wouldn't shock me, though, if he takes a leap from 75 catches to somewhere closer to 85 and a couple more touchdowns, and we look at him and say, wow, he really is one of the most productive tight ends in the sport.
He needs to earn that money this year, and I agree with you. I look at Zach Ertz this year as being that main guy to replace Jordan Matthews in the slot. And the other three guys I look at, Aguilar, I can't have a lot of confidence in him until he puts it together in a game. But the other two names, how about Trey Burton and also Matt Collins?
I like Trey Burton, and let's be fair about Zach Ertz. He's also had some time where he's missed in the last couple of years with injuries. If he does miss time, Burton's the next man up at tight end. Collins has everyone excited. You saw it in college a little bit when he could stay on the field. Health was a problem for him there. You saw it in the Week 1 preseason game. He looks like Jordan Matthews. Aesthetically, when you watch him, just a little bit faster, maybe more athletic, which obviously has Eagles fans excited that he could be more. So I agree with you, Zach. I think people are just poo-pooing what Jordan Matthews did. He's one of 14 receivers in the NFL the last 3 years to play 45 games and catch 225 passes. There is something to be said for suiting up every Sunday and being the guy that moves the sticks. And the Eagles don't have that anymore, and they're going to have to figure out a way to replace it.
Talking to Joe Giglio, the NFL has done really a terrible job with these domestic violence situations, and I can understand why there's some great skepticism if they got this one right with Ezekiel Elliott, and they better have got this one right going to the 6 games, because if he didn't do it, then the NFL looks foolish, but if he did do it, then the NFL 110% made the right decision. With this situation, how do you interpret it, and do you believe the NFL in a track record which has not been very positive for the NFL in these types of situations?
No, I don't. I don't feel confident the NFL gets anything right in these situations. They always seem to get it wrong. I always, though, lean towards why would they want to take Ezekiel Elliott, one of the faces of their league, on the team that is the face of the league in the Dallas Cowboys outside of the Patriots. They're still that. Why would they want to do this if they didn't have to? I have to believe that they saw something. They want to be strict about this. They want to set an example. And it's a weird juxtaposition as a fan because on one end, I say I want this to be true so the NFL doesn't look ridiculous again. On the other hand, I hope no one ever gets hurt, and I hope he didn't do this because why would anyone root for that? It's a weird spot they put fans in. I've read a lot of the documents. I read something today that hadn't come out in many other places where the woman opened up about exactly what happened. I think there's a truth maybe that she is looking for some money. The blackmail stuff could be true, but that doesn't mean he didn't put his hands on her in the way she said. It's unfortunately, this is a story that we have to talk about because of her, because of him, and because of what may have happened.
Wrapping up with Joe Giglio from NJ.com, WIP, and also WFAN right here on the Zach Gelb Show. Joe, this Subway Series, I always enjoy the Subway Series. I don't enjoy my Mets losing the first 3 games of the series. And also Chad Whitston last night, the umpire thought was just a joke behind the plate with Hicks and Cabrera. But this Subway Series, really, you got to see Aroldis Chapman and him fold in that first game of this Subway Series. With Aroldis Chapman going back to what you saw in the Boston Red Sox series, should Joe go to the hot hand? Because it looks like tonight, from his comments, Chapman will be back in that closer role.
Yeah, I think this is a slippery slope for Joe. I mean, he obviously has the weapons to do it. I mean, no bullpen in baseball is deeper and better than the New York Yankees. So if any team can withstand losing their closer to whatever this is, whether it's an injury-related thing or it is a mental thing, it's the Yankees. It's just about, for Joe, if he does it, what happens next? Do you leave it that way for the rest of the season? When does he go back to Chapman? There's a lot of layers to this thing, and it becomes a bigger deal than just take him out for the hot hand and then what, when we get to September. But the Yankees have to win these games. So I think Joe has to go with the hot hand for now and then maybe reset it in a week or two when he feels better about where Chapman is. look, the Yankees can't blow games, Zach. I mean, you've seen it. They're in a race to win this American League East, and although I think they're going to win that first wild card and comfortably have a home game, they don't want that to slip away either. And I don't think they ever thought Chapman would become an issue, but he has been the last month.
You always know the manager in New York is going to get criticized, and to me the criticism is a bit ironic this year because no one expected the Yankees to be in this spot, and Girardi did a nice job getting them to this spot. The criticism of Joe Girardi, I know it's not fair, but how do you view him as a manager?
I think he's very good. I think it's really silly. I mean, the Yankees, the last 3-4 years have rebuilt, and you can put that in quotes because they still had a high payroll, but they never did this with other managers in other years. I mean, they have really turned this roster over. Last year they sold, and he still got that team within, a week to go. They were still alive for a playoff spot. I think he's one of baseball's 3 or 4 or 5 best managers. Every year the guy wins. Every year the guy seems to overachieve compared to what he has. And look, Zach, they're going to probably be in a one-game playoff in a year that no one expected them to make the postseason. And I think with the way they're set up with that bullpen and their offense, if they get through that one-game playoff, they're the team in the American League I wouldn't want to face. If I was the Astros or I was the Red Sox or the Indians, I want no part of the New York Yankees in a short series. Girardi's a good manager, gets made up way too much.
I'll end you on this as we're talking to Joe Giglio on the way out with him. Pete Mackanin, I don't understand why he's not playing Jorge Alfaro more. Can you explain this one to me?
No, I mean, I don't think – whatever the opposite of progressive is, I think that's Pete Mackanin. I don't know what he's doing. His role should be as a steward for these young players to continue to turn this thing over for Philadelphia. Alfaro's not going to learn anything on the bench. And it's not like we're watching a team that has an established, big-time catcher behind the plate that you can understand you wouldn't want to take him out of the role. Cameron Rupp's bad, and he's been bad his entire career. I don't even know, if he'll ever be a starter again once his days in Philadelphia as a starter end. He's just not a good player. It's not like a veteran staff that wants the veteran back. They're young, too. It doesn't make any sense. And Mackanin lost me a long time ago, and I think some other Phillies fans are starting to come around and say, this guy, I don't know what he's doing in that manager spot.
Joe, great stuff. We appreciate the insight as always. Thank you.
You got it, Zach. Take care, bud.